This podcast replay is brought to you by East Coast Public Adjusters, and there's only 9 months left to get that IRMA claim in. Reopen it now. Get that free inspection. Don't settle for less. Call East Coast Public Adjusters, 855-GET-ECPA. Tell them Big O sent you, 855-GET-ECPA.
We got Chris Perkins for you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. All right, let's talk to the Perk Man. You can follow him on Twitter at Chris Perk. You can catch his work at The Athletic MIA. Perk Man, you're in Miami already. You're in Fort Lauderdale, landing safely and everything. All good?
Back at MIA, Big O. Landed at MIA, back home, turned on the phone as soon as I landed and saw the Xavier Howard story.
Oh.
But, you know, it's unfortunate, obviously, but I'll say this, switching gears totally, I still think that the season was a success.
Oh, yeah.
And with that victory on Sunday, probably a roaring success. Now, they didn't get the highest draft pick possible. We know that. We knew that wasn't going to happen a couple of weeks ago, but you end the season by going up to New England and winning when they have something on the line. Successful season, Big O. You won 5 of the last 9. Successful season.
I went a little farther than that, Perk. I said that, the watershed moment for the Dolphins is going to be the 2020 draft in April with the 14 picks, that may be what really catapults them to getting back to being a good and respectable franchise again. I was wrong. I think it was yesterday. Yesterday, it looks like you stole the coach from the Patriots, your nemesis, the team that has dominated that division. He also brought a couple of coaches with him from New England, something none of the other coaches that have left New England have been able to do. I think that's why he swallowed his timeouts at halftime. He goes, this guy knows me too well. I don't want to get in any trouble here. We're in enough trouble as it is. We need to make our adjustments, and then we'll be back. I think the watershed moment was that, because here's a guy that by the end of the season, talent-wise, this team is not supposed to be better. They're actually worse than they were at the beginning of the year because of all the injuries and trades and everything else. So you have a lesser team by now, and you have figured out a way to play the Patriots and beat them at their own game, on their field, when they need something in a big-time way. I think that was the moment for the Dolphins and the Dolphin franchise that, you know what? This is the guy to turn the corner now, because if you can do this with no talent, I can't wait till he gets real talent on this roster.
I hear you, Big O, but I still think that the draft is more important than what happened on the field this season. And I still think that Chris Greer is the most important man in this franchise, even more important than Brian Flores, because Chris Greer is the one who supplies the talent. Look, Brian Flores didn't get any talent this year, and he did a great job with it. And we say, well, what happens when he gets talent? Well, Chris Greer is the only guy who can get him the talent. So Chris Greer is still more important to the process than Brian Flores. Now, look, Flo might turn out to be one of those guys like a Belichick, where he's a head coach who has tremendous say in personnel matters. But, I have a great appreciation for them winning those 5 games, and especially yesterday. And I agree with you. This roster is not as good as it was in game 1, man for man. So I do appreciate that. But this is only, the very first step in the rebuild. You're not even a third of the way there. So it still is more reliant on the draft than what happened on the field in 2019.
No, I understand what you're saying, but I just think that this kind of sends a message to the Dolphin Nation that you got a really responsible coach here. You got a guy that looks like he knows what the hell he's doing, which is something they haven't had here in a long, long time. And Perk, let's not underestimate this. At the beginning of the year, everybody was laughing and pointing fingers, and it's a disaster and all of that. Midway through the season, there are agents and there are young players that are saying, hey, those guys are figuring it out over there in Miami. By the end of the season, They finished 5-4 in their last 9 games. They've got a winning record, and they beat New England in a game that they need. I think that if you're an agent and you've got a young free agent or a player that is looking for a great opportunity, you now, the way you're reviewing the Dolphins in weeks 1, 2, and 3 are completely different on how you're viewing them now in week 17 and going into the offseason. They now look like a competent franchise that might know what the hell they're doing and how to build it compared to what they did at the beginning of the year. So I think the Dolphins have also made an impression on other people, and I think that that's why that moment yesterday was so important in many layers.
Yeah, I hear you. I don't think that victory is going to help them get free agents. And in other words, and let's just throw out a name. Let's just say if Kyle Van Noy from New England, if he's trying to decide between, or among the Rams, let's say, and going back to the Patriots and coming to the Dolphins, for free agents, most of them, it still comes down to money and playing time / opportunity. Mm-hmm. It's good that Flo could be a tiebreaker. I'll put it like that. It could be a tiebreaker.
That's what I mean. Of course, yes.
But I don't think it's going to get them anybody. I don't think anybody's going to say, well, the Dolphins are offering $500,000 less. I'll go there because of Flo. It's if all things are equal, maybe Flo is the tiebreaker. But I'm really not convinced that it works that way. I haven't seen enough cases. It's definitely good. It's better than Flo, coming out and winning 2 games and everything like that. I do still have questions about how Flo will be with veteran players, and I know we've talked about this, and you said that the culture is already going to be set. I just don't know that everybody is that Flo is for everybody.
No, he's not.
As a matter of fact, yeah, and I talked to Daniel Kilgore about this after the game yesterday, and I said, and actually me and Omar Kelly of the Sun Sentinel, Omar walked up later mid-conversation, but I was talking to Kilgore just about, what Flo has done, and Kilgore said, look, the guy set a culture. He set a culture, and winning is the main thing, and you got to be selfless, and the ego stuff is not going to be accepted. But look, there are great players with egos, right? And so you wonder how that's going to work out, and whether you're and I'm not talking about you have to be like a Terrell Owens, Antonio Brown ego, but even like an Ndamukong Suh or a Cam Lake or Rashad Jones, Mike Pouncey, star players want certain things, and so I don't know if Flo is pretty hard headed. He's pretty, and I don't mean that in a bad way. Flo is I should say he's got a way that he wants things done. I'm not sure that's going to mesh with a veteran team and veteran players. It works here because all these guys have something to prove and nothing to lose. I do wonder how flexible Flo is going to be. I would think that he will be flexible. He's not a fool. I'll definitely say that Flo is not a fool, but I do wonder how flexible he'll be if he gets a team of veterans.
All right, so let's just go over something here with James Harrison.
I think he needs to be a little bit more disciplined. Other than that, the big thing with Belichick.
Wait, here we go.
I don't know if it's too much of a player's coach. I think that from me going from being with coaches like Coach Cowher and, to Tomlin and then over to Belichick. Like, Belichick is old school. Like, you go do it like this or it ain't going to get done, So, like I said, playing for him is easy. If you're used to regimen, you're used to discipline, it's not something that's hard to do. If you're not, then you're going to have some issues until you get in line.
It works for San Antonio. It works for the Patriots. It works for the Heat. It works for the Baltimore Ravens. Some places aren't for everybody, and Flo is trying to do that. And by the way, Shula wasn't for everybody either for 30 years. I don't find a problem in that. I don't know why that would be an issue for you. I like it that way. I like that he's going to bring some discipline because that's the way it should be. And I think that if they bring in a veteran, it won't be Odell and it won't be, a Baker Mayfield. It won't be that kind of guy. It'll be the guy that understands discipline. And like Harrison is a guy that understood the discipline, and so he could play under that regimen or regime. So I think that that's really the case. You got to just pick and choose and say, okay, Alonzo Mourning and Jimmy Butler and Dan Marley and Dwayne Wade fit our culture. Deion Waiters, we made a mistake, and Whiteside, we made a mistake, and Todd Day, we made a mistake, and certain guys that you had either, was it Todd Day, the one that he kicked out of practice? Riley, was it Todd Day?
Yeah, the Arkansas kid,
or Smush Parker or whatever. You're going to make your mistakes, and you're going to figure out, okay, this knucklehead doesn't fit what we do. But I don't have a problem with that, Perk. I don't know why you would.
No, I don't have a problem with it. Is Flo flexible enough to deal with players? And I'll give you the example because I do think that, I don't know exactly where Flo is right now as far as where he fits in among coaches. He's a Belichick disciple, but he's not Belichick. He's got good player relations. He took these guys out for dinner before the season started by position group so he could get to know them. And they went around the table and they talked about each other and they had dinner together. Every Tuesday night, the assistant coaches bring their families up there and they have dinner together because Tuesday is the off day for the players. Belichick doesn't do stuff like that. So he's not Belichick. I think that he might be somewhere in the Cowher-Tomlin line, and I say that also because of his intensity, because of Flores' intensity, because those two dudes, when they got mad, Cowher and Tomlin, you knew it. Flo is kind of like that. But there's also room for like a Pete Carroll, right? He's been fairly successful, and his style is a little softer. And so what I'm saying is I don't know where Flo fits in. And by the way, I'm not sure that any of those coaches, as good as you might say they are, as I might say they are, I'm not sure how many of them have been the final decision in free agent choices. Maybe Pete Carroll has, maybe Tomlin has, maybe Cowher was, but just to dip back into that, I'm not sure. But really, with Flo, if you're going to be anyway, whether you're a player's coach or a coach's coach or whatever, you've got to win to get guys to believe. And going back to the conversation with Kilgore, I did ask him. I said, "Well, what is a Flo guy?" And without hesitation, he said Ryan Fitzpatrick. He said just a selfless guy, a guy who is aware, a guy who knows the game, and I thought, okay, I could see that because kind of, and look, Big O, if you look at the guys whose contracts they extended, you have the three receivers, Devontae, Jakeem, and Allen Hurns. You have offensive tackle Jesse Davis. You have, who am I forgetting here? Eric Rowe. None of those guys are jerks. I mean, Devontae, you can say what you want about him, but he's never been a jerk.
No.
And when Kilgore says the Fitzpatrick thing, I kind of see that. I kind of see that. But, at some point you're going to draft a Jarvis Landry and a Mike Pouncey, and can you get along with those guys?
How surprised were you Belichick walked into the half with those timeouts and not get aggressive? Because I really thought he respected the guy on the other side of the sideline and said, we're already kind of in trouble. I need to get my adjustments made. Let me not force something here that could create more problems for us. That's the feeling I got from that. What did you get from that?
I got a little bit of that, but I got more Patriot arrogance / confidence from the standpoint of, look,
we'll be
let's
fine.
Go in here. Let's get our stuff together. We're going to get the ball. We'll get this thing rolling. We'll score on 3 of our next 4 possessions. put this thing away and we'll rest next week. We're the Patriots. We're at home. We got Brady. I know those guys over there across the field. They play hard, but we'll just go in here and we'll regroup and we'll turn on our Patriot magic, and it didn't work. I don't want to say Patriot arrogance, but Patriot confidence, I think, was more of how I took it.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense there. Although, dude, did you see Tom Brady after the game? Because he looked like a president after 2 terms. Seriously.
He did, Big O. Obviously I didn't go into their locker room. We never go into both locker rooms. You just don't have time. The locker rooms clear out too fast. But I saw video and I saw the transcript. But yeah, none of those guys. They all sounded just very shocked and disappointed that this happened. I mean, that they just seemed like, wow, we're now we have to go on the we're not hosting. We don't have a bye. We could be in some trouble. I think it was some very harsh reality that hit those guys in the face at the end of that game. Until the Dolphins scored, I don't think that they thought that the Dolphins could score. And quite honestly, I didn't either. I didn't either, Big O. I didn't think the Dolphins were going to win that game.
Who did? Come on, man.
They surprised and impressed me.
Yeah.
I really didn't.
Neither did I. Nobody thought that they were going to win that game. Yeah. I mean, considering everything that was on the line for the Patriots.
Correct.
Now, here's the best part. Watching Devontae Parker make Stephon Gilmore his bitch. I mean, wow, dude. That is.
Yeah.
That was
very impressive.
That's saying to the world, yo, I'm one of the best receivers in the NFL from here on out. That's what he was wanting to say pretty much with that performance, because he has played like a legitimate number one. Not a number one on this team. I'm saying a legitimate number one wide receiver.
He did everything you wanted to see from Devontae, didn't he? I noticed early he was running very good routes on Gilmore, just very precise routes, and he's making tough catches. He's going up high. He's using his body. He's fighting for the ball. I mean, Devontae was focused. Having said that, I did have I went out to dinner last night with Adam Beasley from the Herald and Hal Habib of the Palm Beach Post. And we were talking about Devontae, and I was saying, look, if this was an unpopular opinion, but I was saying, look, I'm not going into the season thinking Devontae is my number one. I would be happy if he's my number 2, but I believe history, the whole body of work more than the most recent body of work. So I really am not. I don't think they have a number 1 between Preston Williams and Devontae Parker. They have a number 2, and they could have the best number 3 in the league if you consider Devontae or Preston a number 3. But I was saying I would feel comfortable drafting CeeDee Lamb or Jerry Jeudy at number 5, and that's if Tua is not available or you decide it's too much of a risk or whatever. But I could see drafting either one of those receivers and being happy. I know you have more urgent needs. I know there are other. I mean, running back is an absolute disaster on this team, but you're not going to draft DeAndre Swift or anybody else that high. But there are other things you could get. But I like Devontae, but I don't trust what I saw this year to say, yes, this is how Devontae is going to be for the rest of his career. He has that talent, but I still need to see him do it for another season to totally buy in to Devontae as my number 1 receiver. And even number 2, I'm kind of like, yeah, okay, I could settle on him as my number 2.
No, listen, that's understandable. I personally think he played like what you want out of a number 1 wide receiver. And obviously, just like Flo, they need to come back next year and do it again and kind of put a nail in the coffin and say, this is who I am. But the confidence level that this young man is playing with now, it's just not. You've been around the team for a couple of years. This is a kid that you can tell that mentally he's at a completely different plateau than where he was, because now he can count on his body to stay, in one piece.
Yeah, you're right. I have been saying all year, I've never seen Devontae laugh and smile so much that for whatever reason, I don't know if it's the pressure of getting the 5th-year extension or whatever, but he just seemed this year that the pressure was off, that he was no longer the first-round pick who had been a disappointment. Look, you can see Charles Harris wearing that, and Charles Harris, he deserves it more than Devontae because Devontae has way more talent than Charles Harris, and I don't mean to turn this into a risk session on Harris. But, yeah, Devontae, life was so heavy for him the previous 4 years, and then this year it was just like, dude, I'm just going out here and playing football. Like, I'm not the first-round pick anymore. I'm just a guy trying to play football. And I think, to a certain extent, Gesicki in his second year kind of felt that from last year that, I'm not this second round pick who's got a lot of pressure, who this offense hasn't had a tight end since, who knows, Randy McMichael or Charles Clay or whoever you want to say. Gesicki looked like he was carrying that last year. This year he wasn't. I do think Ryan Fitzpatrick has a lot to do with it for both of those guys, Devontae and Gesicki. But look, you're right. Devontae, all year, he ends up, I can't remember his receptions. I believe it was 1,202 yards and 9 touchdowns. But he played like a man all year, Big O. 16 games, first time in his career. Acupuncture, diet, rest, all that kind of stuff. It all came together for Devontae. He truly looked like, as you said, a number one receiver for somebody who could be a number one for almost any team in the league.
All right, so if the Dolphins are interested in Tua at number 5, I personally wouldn't pick him at 5, but if they do, one of the things I talked about last week on the show is that they've got to go Redskins Shanahan style or Jimmy Johnson style, where Jimmy took Steve Walsh because he wasn't convinced with Troy, and Shanahan took Cousins because he wasn't convinced with RG3. Do you agree with me that if you do take Tua, then go take an Anthony Gordon, go take a Jordan Love, go take a Eason, somebody in that second or third rounds that might be a little bit more of a project, but cover yourself with another quarterback?
Sure, 100%. 100%. I mean, look, depending on how much they value this, I wouldn't be opposed to taking another quarterback in the first round at whatever. I haven't even. I don't know what picks they have. I didn't even look. I just know they have 5. I don't know what Pittsburgh's pick is going to end up being. But yeah, in the 20s, I quite honestly, I would not be opposed to that. I would not be opposed to second or third round. I would not be opposed to going back in the first round next year and getting one. Look, you got 14 draft picks this year. 14 freaking draft picks. You better come out with at least one quarterback, and he better be somebody who is a decent guy. You can take a Brandon Doughty in the 7th round if you want to, but that better not be the first quarterback you select. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, I would. Yeah, top 3 rounds, top 2 rounds, preferably. But yeah, but look. If this is the single most important piece to the rebuild. The rebuild is not all about the quarterback, but that's the single most important piece. And you've got to get one in the next 2 years, right? I mean, you just do. You just do to get this thing moving, to get the train rolling down the track. So yeah, if it requires taking 2 this year, if it's that important to you, and I think it should be, definitely 100%. Take 2 this year. Again, you've got 14 freaking picks. You've got to come out of this draft with a quarterback.
5, 18, and 25. The Dolphins will pick in the first round. Pittsburgh's pick is the 18th. Houston is the 25th. Those are the selections.
There we go.
All right.
There we go. You just taught me something, Big O. I had only looked at all the draft orders. All I looked yesterday was, they're set at number 5. Boom. And so, I hadn't even looked at those other 2. Okay.
Caldwell, apparently his personal issues are resolved and he's going to come back to coaching. Will he come back to Miami? Because now there are some rumors out there, which, I mean, it behooves people out there. He is one of the 16 best head coaches in the NFL. Forget 32. It's a shame that he doesn't have a job, but now he's being rumored that maybe he might get a job somewhere. What do you hear about Caldwell? Because I really selfishly would like to see him with the Dolphins.
I would like to see him with the Dolphins too. I talked to a couple of people about that yesterday, and it was, it's interesting that the Black Coaches Association, I believe, put out something that said that Caldwell is 100% health, and Flo has always said that we keep in touch, and he's never said whether it's once a week, twice a week, once a month, whatever, but he said that Caldwell is doing very well health-wise and that he's contributing. And I think my thing is I think that those things are being put out there, especially the Black Coaches Association, so that he is considered a candidate, so that at this time of year, right? Because you could wait till the combine to say something like that, but now that coaching openings are coming around, I think it's probably about 90% strategic and 10% just kind of updating Caldwell's health. In our case, it's updates because we ask Flo about it and he updates us. But putting out a statement that his health is good, I think that's with a purpose. And that's to let other teams know, hey, if you want to talk to this guy, his health is perfect. He's available. He can do the job. Whether he retires, and I don't know how big a loss he would be to the Dolphins if he does not return, because I don't know how much he contributed. But having a mind like that to contribute during the season and in draft and in evaluation of free agency, it would be a loss to whatever extent.
Chris Perkins, of course, from The Athletic, joining us, talking a little Miami Dolphins. All right, so let's get into the X thing. What do we know, Perk? I know the Dolphins released a statement that they're still gathering information. We were worried about the knee, and apparently his knee acted up a little bit before on his way to jail. So double whammy here on this whole thing.
Yeah, I don't know anything. I just know what I've read. Like I said, I landed and turned on the phone, and there was the story. And so, I've only been home, maybe about 30 minutes, so I haven't made any phone calls or anything. Brian Flores and Chris Greer were previously scheduled to speak at 2 p.m. today. So you can bet they're going to be asked about that in an hour and a half or a little less than that when they get up on the podium and speak. But I think obviously it's an unfortunate story and a sad story and a bad story. We'll see how this comes out from the football playing standpoint on field. You definitely worry about a suspension if you're the Dolphins or a Dolphins fan, right? Because that's where the commissioner pretty much has unchallenged power. And, we all know you don't need to be arrested, which Xavier was in this case, for anything to happen. The Dolphins just rolled the dice on Mark Walton, and it didn't work out very well. So, Xavier has always, to me, been a guy who's got a decent head on his shoulders. And look, I'll say this too, Big O, and you know this, but I always say we don't really know these guys, right? We know what they want us to know about them, and in the 6 or 8 hours a week that we are with them. But Xavier has always seemed to me to be a fairly level-headed guy. He doesn't have a history of trouble or being a knucklehead. When you talk to him, he doesn't say crazy things. He conducts himself in a responsible way. So we'll see what happens here. I am a little bit surprised to hear of this incident because that's not the Xavier that I know. But again, strictly speaking from the football unfield point of view here, now this is in the commissioner's hands, and who knows what happens from here. So that's and at the time that he's got this extension, and then he has the knee injury this year, and now this happens heading into the off season. Definitely not good.
Follow him on Twitter at Chris Perk. Catch his work there at the Athletic MIA. He'll be covering that big press conference today at 2 o'clock when Chris Greer and Brian Flores address the media talking about the season, and I'm sure X. Chris, as always, great stuff, my brother. Thank you for taking some time. And before you leave, tell me a little bit about the spread with the Patriots. How good was that food during halftime?
Oh man, you know what? They always have the clam chowder, right? So you got to get you some clam chowder up there. So yeah, Patriots do a good job, man. That's always the main attraction there.
Time.
Houston will usually have some barbecue there. But yeah, that chowder in Boston, you got to do that at halftime, and that's what I have.
Yeah, I've been there twice for games, and the halftime spread for the media is awesome, dude. It is fantastic. All right, Perk. Good stuff as always. Man. Thank you, my brother.
Oh, Happy New Year to you and Bill and to everybody out there, man.
Happy New Year, baby.
Happy New Year, Chris.
You got it. There you go.
All right.
If it's catered, it's covered. That's what we say in the media.